Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Master in Science Education Policy virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also presenting today, I have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, Tyreen Maddox, and Executive Director of the Institute of Education Policy and Professor here at SOE, Dr. David Steiner. They're joining us today. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Please take a second to see if your mic is on mute right now. Please have your mic on mute and video off at all times during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box and we will read and answer your questions. And at this time, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Tyreen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sion. My name is Tyreen Maddox, and I'm the admissions coordinator for this program. I'm just going to briefly go over today's agenda. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Steiner will go over the details of the education policy program. Lastly, we'll wrap up the admissions requirements and leave the floor open for questions at the end. Again, please keep in mind to type your questions in the chat box at the very end of the presentation. So our school is comprised of 9 divisions in which we consider one university. While we are the School of Education, Hopkins does include the Applied Physics Laboratory, Bloomberg School of Public Health, Carey Business School, Krieger School of Arts and Sciences, Peabody Institute, School of Advanced International Studies, School of Medicine, School of Nursing, and Whiting School of Engineering. So just to start, some quick facts about Johns Hopkins University School of Education. We are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University, and we began offering college courses for teachers in 1909, and then we became our very own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For school enrollment, we have approximately 2,465 students and offer more than 30 graduate programs, which does include doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. And we have a strong network of over 22,000 School of Education alums. Our faculty presenter today is Dr. David Steiner. He's the professor of the Executive Director of the Institute for Educational Policy here at Johns Hopkins University. In 2020, he finished serving as a member of the Maryland State Board of Education and the Maryland Commission for Innovation and Excellence in Education. He currently serves on the boards of Core Knowledge Foundation and Relay Graduate School of Education. Most recently, Dr. Steiner was appointed to the Practitioner Counselor at the Hoover Institute, Stanford University. He previously served on the Board of Urban Teachers as well. He also served as Commissioner of Education for New York State, as the Clara and Larry Silverstein Dean at the Hunter College School of Education, and as Director of Education at the National Endowment for the Arts. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. David Steiner.
Thank you so much, Tyreen. Let's first thank everybody for spending some time with us, and I want to urge you to ask any questions you may wish in the chat box. I also want to introduce my administrative assistant, Dominique Dureau. I'm going to have Dominique put her email in the chat box. If there are any questions that are specific to the program rather than to admissions issues, then please feel free to email Dominique, and she and I will work to answer them. So Dominique, please at your leisure, type in your email address. Now, why education policy? I'm sure many of you don't need an answer to that question, but this program has been newly designed around some immediate and I think powerful new forces in K-12 education. And therefore, I think it is worth pinpointing a few of them because they go to the design of our new program. Having served as commissioner of one of the largest state education agencies in the country, I had 3,200 people working in my offices. I'm very much from the front lines, and I can say directly that the role of state education agencies and of large urban districts, I worked, of course, with Joel Klein and others in New York City and other cities, has changed radically in the last decade. For many, many years, these were fairly sleepy organizations. They were organizations that were regulatory. They made the rules. They basically kept tabs on data. That has changed tremendously. State education agencies, big city departments of education are expected now to be innovative, to initiate policy, to be really transparent about their performance, and people come and go depending on how successful they are in a very, very high pressure situation with media attention, with budget challenges, with political challenges. This has become a very active field. And today, those who work in departments of education under innovative leaders are doing things that, again, a decade ago or more, you would have never conceived of. So they are professionals who have to do far more than just regulate. They have to initiate. They have to deal with communications issues, with PR, with the press. They have to deal with multiple budgets and very complex fiscal structures, new kinds of schools, charter schools and others, new kinds of forces on curriculum and assessments, the kinds of tests that are put in place, how to grade them, when to have them, whether to indeed have assessments at all. All of these questions and so many more fall to the professionals at work in these agencies. At the same time, right across the country, there's been a proliferation of think tanks, nonprofits that focus on education policy. And again, the expectations of these places has changed a lot. They are feeding policy briefs to legislatures, to governors, both in DC, to the departments of education at the state level and the Department of Education in Washington, to governors in the states, but also to state legislatures. They are working with other nonprofits to create pressure around different policies. They are evaluating implementations for effectiveness and for really making good use of the public dollar. In other words, they have had to become much more sophisticated, as our expectations of the public departments of education have as well. Next slide. All of this has translated into a whole new set of requirements for folks that really have the skills that these leaders can use. Again, when I was commissioner, I was constantly on the lookout for talent. And it was very, very hard to find, to be frank. Folks who could do the data analysis at a high level and turn it into policy. Folks who knew how to read federal statutes and state statutes and regulations, which are frankly written in a language that if you aren't trained to read, good luck. Folks who really understood local politics and how media and politics could work to kill or to really support different kinds of initiatives. The ability to draft recommendations. Policy briefs have to be short, to the point, and sophisticated, not an easy combination. This isn't a 20, 30-page academic paper. This is a skill all of itself. Folks who know how to link fiscal and policy priorities. There are so many skills and they are in very high demand. In many cases, the first demand is for quantitative ability, that is folks who can read statistics, make sense of them, but almost as strong is the requirement for folks who can write well, can write policy briefs well, can turn complicated data into English that can be read by legislators and superintendents and CAOs, chief academic officers. So again, not to push too hard on the same point, but the traditional programs, and this is why we've really created this new one, traditional programs in policy tended to be rather, and still do, tend to be rather academic, right? They read, fair enough, a lot of research. They are designed really in many cases for people who want to become academics. And our program is certainly not without its important merits in that regard. You certainly could go on from this master's to doctoral work. But our first priority is to provide job skills where those jobs are high caliber jobs, high caliber positions in state agencies, in federal agencies, in city agencies, in nonprofits. And that is why we've invented this program, to really be focused on delivering in the workplace at crucial places that make policy in K-12 education happen. Next slide. So to get a little bit into the nuts and bolts, as I've said, we are really trying to provide this comprehensive research-based real world ready skills, knowledge. And how do we do that? Well, we thought a lot about this and we wanted to give folks a chance to keep their current jobs and nevertheless complete this master's degree. So it is online. It is almost exclusively online. There is a 5-day Washington, D.C. experience. I fear that may go the way of COVID, and we'll put it online as well. We'll make a final decision about that in the next couple of months. If you are from abroad, you may join remotely anyway. But apart from that 5-day immersive experience, all of the material is online. It is designed to be largely asynchronous so that you don't have to, you have a fixed time to meet every week with your professor. There will be some scheduled meetings, but they'll be known well in advance for you to schedule around. You can do this part-time. We designed it to be done in a year. That, to be frank, will require a lot of hard work. It is not impossible. If you ask me, can I hold a full-time job and do this in a year? Well, if you are a super hard worker, yes. If you prefer to do this over 2 years, it can be done. We will repeat, of course, the credits and the instruction, but we will not offer things in between. That is, you have to be enrolled at the time in the course. So that is the design. It is also a fairly moderate number of credits. You will see master's courses 40 and 40 plus credits. Unless you have to take the Intro to Stats course, you can do this whole program, this master's program, in 33 credits. And then a word on our faculty. I will be teaching in the course, as will others who have real policy background. This is not, professors who've had no real world experience. We have a very rich array of folks teaching who've had federal, state, and local policy backgrounds. Just to give you one example, our federal course is being designed by the former chief of staff in the Department of Education, the US Department of Education, Joanne Weiss, who was basically responsible herself for one of the biggest programs in all of American education history, the Race to the Top program. So you're getting a faculty that has academic expertise, but also has real world expertise at the most senior level. And that, I think, is one of the most exciting and perhaps different aspects of this master's degree. Next slide. So, as I said, the basic structure here is that you are taking a sequence of online courses. There is the Intro to Stats and the introductory course with its Washington, D.C. basis during that first summer. Then you take 3 courses in the fall, 3 in the spring, and then a course in the second summer. You can choose to do only one or two and then finish in 2 years if that works better for you. That is fine with us, and we would just know that in advance. And I mentioned this 1 week in Washington. The idea here was to bring everybody together and have Washington, D.C. based and people who are nearby and some people flying in from further away to really have a face-to-face, intense, everyday, 6-hour experience. We will do that, and we will certainly do it in person in the years ahead. Whether we can do this this summer in August, it's August 9th to 13th, is what's been designed for that week. That's the schedule. Whether we can do it in person, your guess, frankly, is as good as ours at this point. So that's the format. And again, the focus really is on that online structure so as to make it possible for professionals to take this degree. Next slide. Here is the actual course sequence. As you can see in that first summer, you will be asked to do an intro to stats if you haven't had a B or better in a statistics course in the last 5 years. This is not because we are evil or we don't have your best interests in mind. On the contrary, for so many jobs now in K-12 education at the administrative level, where you're being hired by a city department, a state department, a federal department, having that quantitative skill set is gold. Other things then add to it and make you super attractive, but without it, you lose out before you even get in the door. And then we have in that first summer that introduction to ed policy. That is, as I say, going to be made up of experts giving seminars, 2 a day, every day for 5 days. You'll have some very modest targeted reading. You will have had some weeks beforehand of introductory texts that I and Deputy Ashley Berner have selected. And we will be, of course, putting that out well in advance so that you have time to read that material. In the fall, you see the 3 courses in the fall: federal education policy, diversity, and intermediate statistics. Let's get that done. Please don't be scared about that. Those of you who are a little bit numbers phobic, as I have been, we have a wonderful instructor for that, and she is just terrific and will have designed this course for those who have done that introduction to statistics. Then in the spring, we go to the state and local policy. We talk about international education policy and education finance. Again, education finance is not always covered properly in these kinds of degrees. It's crucial. Understanding the dollar as well as the R squared from statistics, those are 2 huge skill sets that are really needed. In the second summer, after the spring, you see Outside the Schoolhouse Door. That is a really innovative course that looks at the impact on educational readiness and performance, all those factors that really do lie outside the school. Those have become increasingly important as we understand the impact of SES, social and emotional issues, other issues, not just the obvious ones, but really digging into cross-cutting matters of race and poverty and health and family structure. So much to understand there. Then understanding education research. Can you make sense of a very dense paper from one of the top journals? And we will make sure that you can and can translate it into policy. Then your capstone project, which will be a piece of your writing based in your situation. We will, of course, help you to select that project. It can be immediately part of your job if relevant. Otherwise, it can be a research project that takes you a little outside your experience. And then we will help those of you who would like to do a some kind of internship, some kind of experiential learning, we will work with you to help place you and give you that experience. It is completely optional for any of you who would like to explore that option. So that is the sequence of the credits. That's the order in which they'll be taught each year. Obviously, we are working now on finalizing the syllabi, on finalizing the reading lists, the structure, but this will not change. This is now set, and we have the faculty. So we're really excited about this. It's compact, it's hard driving. There's no fluff here. There really isn't. There is nothing here that we don't think you need to know to be ready on day one for a whole set of very, very exciting career options and or advancement where you are. So that's where we are in terms of our course sequence. Next. So what does this all add up to? We've done a lot of backward design here. The way we design these courses is not starting with, well, it would be nice to introduce you to this, this, and this, but what are the outcome skills and pieces of knowledge that you really need to know, and then backward mapping them into the coursework so that we know you will know these pieces of knowledge, you will be able to conduct these pieces of policy analysis, you will be able to create that policy paper, you will be able to analyze that budget, that research, etc. So each of these bullets has been fed back into the design of the program and of the degree. And so you can see here a rich array of skills and knowledge. I won't read every bullet. Many of them I've covered already, but they are not drawn from some academic wish list. They are not drawn from existing programs. This is brand new. This is based on a need to know basis. And we will continue to tweak the reading lists up until the moment the course is given. We will redesign reading lists each year to make sure the most recent research or case studies are included. This is not going to be one of those degrees where the courses are built and never change. Quite the contrary, this has to be immediately relevant, though of course some of the works you will study are there because they're classics and they include wisdom that we think stands the test of time. So it's going to be a very rich set of materials aimed at ensuring that these bullets are there, are achieved by the time you graduate. I think the crucial point here is that by the time you do graduate, it is our responsibility to know that you have these skills and that you have this knowledge. And that's the exciting thing about this program. Okay, next slide. We've talked about this residency. We are designing the 2 summer seminars per day for 5 days. There are the dates. If it's online, it won't change the fundamental structure of this experience. You should expect to block out that time. You will have some readings to do in the after the 4 p.m. Not much because we know you're busy, but this is important. If you're full-time employed, so forth and so on, you really do need to work soon, assuming you join us, to make sure that this week is free. Because this is going to give you really the foundation of everything else in the master's degree. This is going to be a deep immersion experience with real experts covering the waterfront that you will then dig into in much more detail. But the designers of the courses that come after have seen this reading list and assume that you will have read it. We will be testing you just because it's useful incentive on the material. You'll be speaking, you'll be engaged, there'll be conversations with the experts, and that we think this is really that intense sort of rocket launch, if you will, of the whole program. We were really excited to think about this in person, and we hope still we can do it. It'll certainly be that way in the future. Good, so that is the residency. Why do this? Again, every program has its pluses that it wants to talk to you about. I wouldn't have designed this as a professor, former commissioner, if I didn't think there was a real need for it. As I say, I just couldn't recruit out of existing master's programs into my agency, either at the federal or at the state level. And I've designed this program to give me the kind of people I knew I would have needed. And it's really that at that level. It is unique in the sense I don't think there's another program in the country that has in its teaching core the kind of real world experience that we offer at the highest level. You will get a who's who in that DC week. You will really be developing network contacts that will serve you very well thereafter. Just the chance to interact with those folks who are going to be presenting in DC, as well as some of the faculty. We are really set on preparing you for what we know about the world, what we know about the K-12, enormous K-12 education world, and the skills that it requires. So this is, again, while it's absolutely possible for you to do this and go on to a doctoral program, and we have an excellent one at Johns Hopkins, we have both an EDD and a PhD, and I'm happy to talk to folks who would like to know more about how that might work. We are equally, if not more, focused on those who are going to take this and go into the workplace or continue to advance in your current workplace. Maybe you do a doctorate a little later if it interests you. This is really a real world program. And I'm just excited about it. I know that we've heard from many people. We just recently let our network at the Institute of about 4,000 policymakers know about this program. And I just got so many emails that said, finally, right, somebody is taking the need seriously. So that is what is motivating us. And we have made our mission standard such that we hope that it will attract folks who really have a passion for policy. We did not include a GRE requirement because I know of no research that correlates GRE scores with strong performance in the workplaces that we're talking about. We really do want a rich and eclectic group who are dedicated to working really hard, especially if they're going to do this in a year, who are motivated and who expect to take in a lot of information and gain a lot of skills. So that's our ideal candidate. If you want to know if you can come straight out of an undergraduate program, you can, absolutely. We would love to see evidence of why this makes sense for you. If you are a year or 2 or 3 or 5 out of your undergraduate program, that's wonderful too. And of course, your work experience can be invaluable as you move into this program. So that's really, I think, what I wanted to say about the Masters. I hope you can hear in my voice how excited I am about this new program. I will be leading it. I will be teaching in it. And I look forward very much to meeting you and to answering your questions. So I think we're ready for the next slide.
Thank you, Dr. Steiner, for the wonderful presentation on the Ed Policy Program. So now we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. First, a 3.0 or better cumulative undergraduate grade point average. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. The application fee is $80. And please keep in mind the deadline to submit your application for fall 2021 is March 26, 2021. And the deadline to submit your supporting materials, for example, your official transcripts, letters of recommendation, and that's April 15, 2021. As stated, official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. Again, we need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. Next, an essay and a current resume, 3 letters of recommendation, and finally, the GRE is not required for this program. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score, and if your degree was completed outside of the US, you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our website. The current tuition for the MS in Education Policy at SOE is $1,300 per credit. The total cost of the program with the statistics course is $46,800, and without the statistics course would be $42,900. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. We do offer a limited number of partial need-based scholarships for fall and spring semesters. The application deadline is April 1st. Please visit our website if you have any questions relating to financial aid. Thank you for attending the Ed Policy virtual webinar. At this time, we would like to open the floor up for questions.
Yes, there's a question about statistics. I think often what happens is you get given a statistics textbook and you get told to read the first chapter and take a test. I'm only exaggerating slightly. Kelly, who is working with me on this course, is breaking this down into something much more manageable. She's been very conscious of pacing the course for total beginners. She's been very careful not to go too quickly. She is working to really assist people who, may not have done math in a while. And so I have a lot of confidence. If I can follow the way she's done this, then you can. I think that's the best advice I can give. And I think you'll find it manageable. I really do. And she's been tasked with doing just that. In other words, this is not this is not an effort to cram as much as possible into as short a time as possible. This really is a preparatory course. In terms of background experience, you might have done some work in the public sphere, in an agency. You might have done some work in communications or some other kind of public entity where you've been exposed to a professional environment. You might, on the other hand, have been teaching. You may come from the education world and want to move into a policy direction. So we are very eclectic. What we'd love to see is success, obviously, in what you've done and your ability to perhaps meet some challenges and talk about that in your application. Yes, absolutely combining it with Jen's question, Carl and Jen's questions. It is very much for those who are perhaps early mid-career who want to make that shift. They will know a lot about what it is to be the end user of our education system. They will have gained a lot of insight. And I have a lot of respect for folks who say, now I want to move into the world that makes the conditions under which I was having to work for these last 10 years or whatever it may be. Can I take a test to be exempted? We have not done that because we haven't, to be very frank, found a good test. I will take that back under advisement, but at this point, we really want you to take that course because it is geared towards the second course, right? In other words, it's been designed to lead people from not knowing anything to that intermediary course. I don't mean to doubt anyone's abilities, but frankly, if you did stats more than 5 years ago, are you really honestly ready for an intermediary stats course? You know, we can perhaps talk about this, but in general, we believe that that's a long time to hold statistical operations in your head, and that it wouldn't hurt you at all to have a refresher. But again, we will investigate it. It's a good question. Culturally linguistic, how does this program really want to focus? Do you feel like my program? Yes, certainly. As you know, we have a very, very strong emphasis in this country right now on diversity, on equity. So absolutely, there's a whole course on that as part of our masters. So you'll have a heads up there. And definitely this will be also focused on international education. There is a whole course on international education. We will be using best cases from around the world, not just from the United States. I grew up in Europe, in England, and I've been working with PISA and other international organizations, and that will be reflected in the coursework. Go ahead.
Dr. Stein, I'll go ahead and pick up. So the next question is, would this program be appropriate for an experienced elementary school teacher 10 years plus who is interested in taking a macro view and a career change?
Yeah, I did. I addressed that a little earlier, and the answer was very much yes. I spoke about the mid-career changer, so absolutely. On the type of support you provide pursuing a career in education policy nearing the conclusion of the program, we will be writing, obviously, letters of recommendation for students. That goes without saying, but we have a very powerful Rolodex. As you can imagine, with the kinds of folks involved in teaching this program, you are going to benefit from our institute. Our institute has been at Hopkins for now over 5 years. We work with, at last count, I think 14 states, mostly their leadership. We work with districts across the country and their leadership. We work with nonprofits, all the big ones in education. We will be able not simply to write generic letters, but to say, we think you'd be a great fit for this organization, this leader. We will write on your behalf. It doesn't have to be a job opening. Given how many years we've been engaged in this work, letters from us to certain leaders who trust our judgment are going to be worth a lot more than a generic letter of recommendation. So it really is making you a part of our network. Obviously, we have to see the performance, right? Our credibility is at stake here too. We won't recommend folks who just aren't, strong in different aspects of the program. But where you have excelled, we will push your resume to the attention of people who can use it. Could you speak a bit to how the program addresses and emphasizes the intersections of social inequality? Yes. So on the issue, 2 of the courses speak to that directly. The outside of the schoolroom is the course for those issues. So we are going to be looking in depth at the kinds of impacts of poverty, of race, of racism, of issues of gender, of issues of family support and health. So that will be explicit in that program, in that particular course. But it really is going to be throughout in the case studies, in the federal and state policy courses. This has become crucial to the entire field of education policy. Discretion the number of letters of recommendation required. I should stress that the letters don't have to relate to education. Wherever you've been working, we've already had some applications, and some of them come from folks who are in the workforce and in places that are not education-based, but their letters speak to their initiative, their performance, their whatever the qualities may be. So it is 3 letters, but it's absolutely not required to be in the field of education.
Thank you, Dr. Steiner. We did get another question that was privately messaged in regards to letters of recommendation asking if do I need to have one academic letter of recommendation out of the 3 that are required? So to answer that, no, if you need to submit 3 professional references, that is perfectly fine, since understanding that, again, some of our students have been out of school for a while.
Sure, absolutely. I think the one thing I would say is if there's something to explain in your transcript, you might want to address that in your personal statement. But there is, as you rightly said, no requirement that the letters come from the academic world.
Thank you, Dr. Steiner. Another question I received was, how many hours should I allocate for schoolwork if I choose the part-time option? I will be also working full-time.
Right. So there, I think the question is how many courses you would like to take this coming year versus the second year, right? And whether you want to distribute it roughly 50-50, so talking about, 16 or so credits, 15 credits one year, 18 credits the other. And if you're really doing one course, then you might be thinking about the number of hours it takes you to take an academic course, right? So there will be the same kind of amount of readings that there would be in a regular face-to-face master's course. Not every course will be identical and not every week will be identical. But think about an academic load from your undergraduate years. Think about, a fairly demanding academic course and say to yourself, well, could I manage one at any given time? Would I be able to manage 2 at some point? If it's 1, then am I going to be able to do this in 2 years? I don't want to give an absolute number of hours because everyone's pace of work is different and each course may be a little different. But you should certainly assume that there will be more than 5 hours a week and possibly less than 20. Of course, depending on a given week and the amount of reading and whether there is a presentation to be made, a paper to be finished, it won't be, by clockwork, X number of hours per week.
Wonderful. And Dr. Steiner, we received another question. Is there a maximum amount of students that will be admitted to the program?
Yeah, we are capping it at 25. We are on a rolling admissions basis. It is a brand new program. So very honestly, we have no idea whether we'll face, 100 applications, 500 applications. We don't know. We would love a diverse pool. We are looking for that motivation and the demonstration that you can, if you are going to do this in a year, you can do it in a year. And even if you do it in 2 years, for the seriousness of why this makes sense for you. But I think the crucial point here is that we don't want this to be vast. You're going to get to know your fellow students. You're going to have real contact with the professors, real attention to you personally. And we felt 25 was the maximum, and it may be fewer than that. We want good candidates and we want a first-rate program. Online versus otherwise, very frankly, that has changed in the last 10 years. And COVID has massively accelerated that change. I think here it's the credibility of our university. Johns Hopkins, I don't need to tell you, has a world-class reputation that's only been solidified through the COVID period, with Johns Hopkins data being cited and looked at by several billion hits. And I think that very frankly, it's the name that we put behind it and the folks we have teaching in it. And the fact that you are a professional working will only add to your cachet when you come out with the degree. The cohort program, we wanted that sense of community. We have sensed in the past that with regular coursework, you come, you go, you never are sure who your classmates are. There's a sort of sense of isolation often. This is a cohort that we believe will bond. We believe you will help each other in the future. You will create a really strong alumnus network, which we will support. And we just thought it was a more attractive, engaging, and a richer learning pedagogical experience to do it this way.
Thank you, Dr. Steiner. Another question we received privately is, are the courses asynchronous?
Yes, I mentioned earlier, and you may have joined a little later, that most of the work is asynchronous, that there will be some synchronous gatherings depending on the choices made by the individual instructors, the faculty. We have told them to keep that modest, to make it clear well in advance when those dates will be so that people can plan around them. They will be, we hope, offered in a way that gives people a chance to do them out of work time, so perhaps in the evening. We are working on that right now. We don't yet have all the details, but I would say that 90% plus of the experience is asynchronous, in the sense that you will join a chat and add your comments and your observations, for example, on a chat tree at your convenience, not at a required moment. But there will be some gatherings together, and that goes to the cohort point, and those will be scheduled well in advance.
All right, it looks like there are no more questions.
There's a question about
Yes.
that you see, probably for you rather than for me. This is about applying to the global leadership cohort. Okay, advisable is the answer. Okay, any other questions? Earlier in the chat, I saw Dominique, my administrative assistant, gave her email. You see it a little higher up at 3:31 p.m. So please don't hesitate to email her. And she will, of course, get it also to me, but she is the administrator for this program. So she is full of knowledge about it. And I will, of course, contribute if I can be helpful in answering your question. Admissions also has their email, and there are the two emails right there. Wonderful. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions that may emerge.
All right, so it looks like there are no more questions. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Thank you again, Dr. Steiner, for your time and the wonderful presentation today. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.